Hello and welcome back to Vizura Recaps. At the start of the film, we are transported to a little village in America, where we are told that many individuals have become drug addicts in recent years. Of course, this is attributable to an increase in the number of vendors nearby. Then we meet a sheriff named Mike. Mike's morning might have been particularly horrible because he had recently lost his kid. When Mike viewed his son's body, he discovered that he had overdosed on banned-controlled substances. The scene shifts to a man named Shelby John, who is purchasing drinks for his girlfriend at home. When he arrived at his residence, his girlfriend, Robbie, greeted him right away. John and Robbie are junkies who frequently consume drugs together at night. One day, John and Robbie were observed enjoying a casual talk on their home's patio. Robbie thought that they needed to end their addiction and live regular lives like everyone else. John stated that they attempted to stop but were unable. Robbie stated that she wants to marry, have children, and live a regular life with John. After much discussion, they ultimately decide to stop using illegal substances, which had been wrecking their lives, despite the fact that they knew it would be difficult. Then they discarded all of the things and equipment they used to ingest narcotics. They were still able to suffer withdrawal in the following days, but after a long enough period, they began to experience the consequences of withdrawal, which were extremely painful, beginning with vomiting, convulsions, anxiety, sadness, and a daily desire to commit suicide. They still felt anguish, but their drive to overcome their addiction was strong. When Robbie, who had already decided she couldn't handle it any longer, prepared to return to acquire illicit narcotics, John intervened. John was certain that they could get through it all. In short, they've gotten through it everything. Robbie went to church for the first time, while John went to the jewelry store to get a wedding ring. After purchasing the ring, John unexpectedly encountered a man named Elvis. Elvis was known to have sold illicit substances to John and Robbie. Elvis inquired whether John was purchasing stuff for someone else. John stated that he and Robbie had come to a halt and requested that Elvis keep his distance from them. On the opposite side, we'll meet the criminals who have been in charge of drug trafficking in this city. This is Coyote, the gang's boss. At the time, Coyote murdered one of his guys when he was discovered collecting illicit substances. In the evening, John and Robbie appear to be really pleased. They intend to visit Robbie's family to inform them that Robbie and John are getting married shortly. A few days later, they visit Robbie's residence, which coincides with his nephew's birthday. When they arrived, they were greeted by Robbie's uncle, Peter. So far, Peter had been helping Robbie's family, and he was also recognized for his religious beliefs. Following the birthday celebration, Robbie's family gathered for lunch. Robbie mentioned that she and John will get married shortly. Robbie's mother was disappointed because John should have sought her permission first. John instantly apologized to Robbie's mother and pledged to be a good husband to Robbie. In the end, her mother gave John permission to marry Robbie. Peter also appeared pleased since he was confident that John was a decent guy. In the days leading up to John's wedding, and after urging Robbie to have fun first, Robbie stated on one occasion that she truly wanted to get baptized before marrying. John, upon hearing this, readily agreed to Robbie's requests. The next day, it was discovered that John was returning home, while Robbie would follow because she was still at home with her mother. When John arrived to his residence, he was surprised to see Elvis already there. Elvis mentioned that he had something fresh that John and Robbie would enjoy. John became enraged and threatened Elvis, threatening to beat him if he ever offered that illegal substance to John and Robbie again. After Elvis left John's house and unintentionally collided with Robbie's automobile, Robbie instantly inquired as to Elvis's reason for meeting John. Elvis lied, claiming that John had ordered new items for him. Robbie felt duped by John when she learned this since she assumed John was still a drug user in secret. Elvis provided Robbie free and new unlawful items because he had always been the best consumer. Robbie, who was still unhappy with John, received the information without hesitation. When she arrived at John's residence, he inquired as to why Robbie was acting strangely despite the fact that Robbie's christening was scheduled for tomorrow. Robbie appeared to be covering up her troubles and claiming everything was good. The next day, when John approached Robbie on the house's terrace, he was stunned to discover that Robbie had died of an overdose. John was quite unhappy and despondent, as their wedding was the day after tomorrow. After that, John still accompanied Robbie to the baptism because it was his final request. The preacher proposed that John be baptized as well, but John refused since he needed to deal with certain sins first. Then John went home to obtain a pistol, as he planned to get revenge on Elvis. Because John didn't have a firearm, he simply carried a nail gun. John is revealed to have previously served in the Special Forces. Shortly after John left, Sheriff Mike and his officers appeared. Apparently, the sheriff had learned about John's girlfriend's murder and knew John would undoubtedly be violent in his own way. Unfortunately, the sheriff couldn't find John since he'd already left his residence. In the evening, John visited Elvis's residence. When Elvis was going to open the door, John abruptly instructed his wife and Elvis's child to leave the house immediately. John wondered why Elvis was still feeding Robbie the illicit thing. Elvis said that he had a sales aim of selling 1 kilogram of illicit substances every month. Because there were no customers this month, he was compelled to seduce Robbie in order to re-establish his addiction. Then John inquired as to where Elvis acquired these items. Elvis first refused to tell, but as John began to torment him, Elvis eventually acknowledged that he obtained the illicit substances from a dealer called Darius. After Elvis provided Darius' name and subsequently the location where Darius lived, John executed him without hesitation. Then John took several of Elvis's firearms and ran away. Soon after, Elvis's wife contacted the authorities, and the sheriff arrived at his residence. Here, the sheriff and several of his men discovered several kilograms of illicit narcotics ready for distribution by Elvis. Behind that, John headed to a hotel since, according to the information Elvis supplied, Darius was staying there. When John got inside, he quickly moved in and struck Darius' right-hand guy. This is Darius, who has been supplying Elvis illicit items. Darius inquires as to what John desires. John said that he would murder all of the dealers in this city. Hearing this, Darius stated that he wanted to leave the firm, but Darius' employer would not allow him. John wanted to know who Darius' employer was. Darius said that he shouldn't share it. That is why John shot Darius' right-hand man's leg right away. Finally, Darius revealed that his boss's name was Coyote, and he now resided in a rural village with his goons. Darius further stated that John should kill Coyote quickly before Coyote kills both John and himself. John did not murder Darius and instead opted to flee. Following that, you can see the sheriff and his officers heading to the hotel after learning about John's disaster. When they arrived, the sheriff attempted to interview Darius' right-hand guy inside the ambulance. The sheriff inquired as to where the individual who had shot him in the leg was. Because the right-hand guy refused to speak, the sheriff tortured him briefly. Finally, the right-hand guy revealed that John was on his way to Coyote's headquarters, which were located in a rural village. Finally, John arrived to Coyote's headquarters. Before launching the attack, John observed them. Here's Coyote, who was witnessed murdering one of his troops who was deemed a traitor. Meanwhile, underneath the headquarters, a car is going to deliver narcotics when John manages to halt it in the middle of the road. Without hesitating, John murdered the driver. Then John detonated some explosives, and the automobile exploded. Following that, John quietly reached the headquarters area via the back route. Without hesitation, John completed them one by one. John murdered the gangster members of Coyote's guys before finally cornering Coyote. But, just as he was ready to shoot, John realized he had run out of ammo. Then a struggle broke out between them, and Coyote opted to flee into the forest. Here, John did not remain mute. The sheriff arrived with one of his men as John and Coyote were still pursuing each other through the forest. After an hour, Coyote attempted to call the big boss, who had been working with him all along. But John stole Coyote's phone, which astonished him because the mastermind behind all drug trafficking in this city was someone he knew. When John was going to shoot Coyote, the sheriff appeared with a revolver. The sheriff urged John to cease the savagery and let him handle it. When John was about to melt down, one of Coyote's guys appeared and shot the sheriff's men. Fortunately, John was able to murder him, while the sheriff was forced to shoot Coyote for resisting. Then John and the sheriff led the sheriff's men out of the woodland. After exiting the jungle, John encountered a neighbor who chanced to be passing by. John also requested the resident to transport the sheriff's deputies to the hospital. The sheriff will arrive with his troops, while John will seek for the mastermind behind all narcotics activity in the city. Shortly after, John met the genius behind it all, who turned out to be Peter, John's uncle. John couldn't stop thinking that Peter, who he assumed was pious, was actually the largest dealer. Another to assist Robbie's family members, who happened to be John's girlfriend's family. On one occasion, Peter covertly stole a gun and shot John, resulting in a brawl. When Peter was surrounded, John promptly administered medicines to him, causing Peter to experience the same emotions as Robbie. After Peter's death, John goes to the Reverend because he wants to be baptized in the same river as Robbie. That was the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more material like this, and please press the like button to assist us. Also, if you want us to recap your favorite movie, leave a comment. Take care until the next time.